Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anish Basu Roy. I'm a 2X founder. For the last 11 years, I've been an entrepreneur. And I'm angry. I'm upset, I'm infuriated. Let me tell you why. It's actually a very interesting, personal, slightly professional story. So around 2 years ago, we were on Shark Tank. And the moment our episode was telecast, the world around us almost changed. The world started looking at us very differently. Sales shot up. The brand at a fairly early stage ended up getting massive amount of recognition. Everywhere we went, we were asked about our Shark Tank experience. Because in the minds of most of those people who wanted to know our Shark Tank experience, that was our extraordinary achievement. However, when we would want to tell them about our journey before Shark Tank, we didn't necessarily find the same amount of excitement. Every time we possibly wanted to talk to them about all the painstaking efforts with which we had actually developed some very innovative and unique snacking experiences, they would ask us about our Shark Tank experience. Every time we tried to tell them about how much our sales team actually worked in the market and actually endeavored to sell to retailers and customers, they would yet again come back and ask us about our Shark Tank experience. We wanted to tell people every time that we had failed and what we had learned from it, and in response, the only question that we got was, can you please tell us about your Shark Tank experience? Because seemingly in the minds of all those people who were asking us that question, whatever we had done, the relatively ordinary, usual things that we had done up until then to become the brand that we were, was all ordinary. In my little nerdy mathematical mind, for me it's actually a mathematical equation. For me, the way I look at it, it's a very, very simple thought. Everything that you visualize as extraordinary, everything that you see as extraordinary is nothing but, in fact, in most occasions, it is actually less than the sum total of all the everyday ordinaries that we do, raised to the power E, where E stands for everyday. And hence, I said, I may not necessarily resonate or completely agree with the theme. I resonate, of course, but I may not necessarily completely agree with it, because in my mind, I repeat, the extraordinary is nothing but the simple sum total of all the everyday ordinaries that we do. The last 10 years, this entire country, the entire public imagination has been completely invaded by startups. I'm sure everybody sitting here and outside this room today speaks about, unicorns, decacorns, valuations, ARR, MRR, and a lot of other complicated startup terminology and jargon. Because that is what inspires them. Because that is what they believe is extraordinary. Now, all of that is fine. All of that is absolutely fine. What is not fine is that in our urge to build extraordinary businesses today in this country, we are more often than not forgetting the simple ordinary things, the simple ordinary processes, the simple ordinary focus areas that deserve all the attention and that need to be done well. Now, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is it that, almost every college kid today wants to drop out, start a business, build a unicorn, and eventually dreams about that extraordinary exit? I think it is because of two key reasons. Number one on that list is this massive information overload that we are being inundated with. And secondly, I think it is because our lack of ability to see the power of compounding. Allow me to explain. I don't think any of you would disagree with me if I said that we are all living in an era of information overload. We are being inundated, we are being bombarded with success stories of businesses. We are being bombarded with visuals, with narratives about all these extraordinary businesses that are being built across the world. And I don't blame anybody. I don't blame anybody for wanting to themselves build an extraordinary business. Nothing wrong with it at all. All of that is absolutely fine, as I said before. I think somewhere where all of this is fundamentally falling apart is because all of us want to stand out. Everybody eventually is looking to be extraordinary and hence move on this path of achieving the extraordinary. Secondly, now obviously we want to be extraordinary, right? All of us. I think the other phenomena which is possibly making us inspired by all these extraordinary businesses is to do with the fact that most of us are oblivious to the power of compounding. Now, what is the power of compounding? Many people before this have spoken about the power of compounding. I think in my mind, the one version that stands out the most is something that was presented by James Clear, who's the author of Atomic Habits. Amongst various other things, I think the one simple principle and the rule that he actually lays out beautifully in front of us, and again, a mathematical equation. Basically, every single day for 365 days, if you focus on a particular skill and improve on it even 1% every day, at the end of that 1 year, you will be 37 times better at that skill. I repeat, pick up a skill, focus on it, improve on it even 1% a day. By the 365th day, you will be 37 times better at that skill. Compounding is something which is not usually visible to the naked eye because most of us are blinded by linear equations. Now, why am I actually talking about the power of compounding here? And the reason for that is this. This, ladies and gentlemen, this chart is an extraordinary chart again. These are the 10 most valuable companies in the world in the year 2023. Obviously, we all love these names. But I urge you to look a little deeper into this list, and one facet that will stand out is the fact that not even a single one of these companies is less than 20 years old. The youngest company on this list is a company called Tesla, which was founded in 2003. That's almost 21 years ago. What I'm trying to talk about is the fact that extraordinary companies on extraordinary lists like these do not get built overnight. These are the companies which have possibly amply exemplified before us the fact that the only way you build extraordinary companies is by getting better 1% at a time, 1 day at a time on organizational skills, and only then do you get to be a part of extraordinary lists like these. There's a reason why unicorns are mythical. I think charts like these are the only ones that is the reality. Now, this is in context of large companies, right? I think large companies have amply shown that you need to persevere, right? You need to get better, you need to iterate on a particular skill and get better at it. So I don't think any of these companies have left us any doubt on that. But as a small business starting out today, right, it is so easy to get actually disenchanted by everything that you read around and you hear around. Building a business is not easy. I think everybody will agree here. Building a business is not easy for a very simple reason. There are too many variables at play. People, product, price, processes, positioning, and so on and so forth. All these things you need to get right all at the same time. Not an easy task. Not an easy task at all. Can it be done? I think the blatant, brutal reality is that you cannot. You cannot focus on all these things at the same time. And the only way to actually succeed at this game is to do a very ordinary thing. You need to break it down. You need to break it down into very simple things that you can focus on and get better at one at a time, eventually to become that extraordinary company that you're looking to build. Entrepreneurs, founders, fundamentally are people who love the hustle. People who are possibly more often than not in a hurry, and nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But when that happens at the cost of trying to do everything at the same time, the chances are higher that you might just fall on your face. But don't mistake me. I am not even for once saying do not experiment. Right? Experiment by all means. Right? Try out new things by all means. But if it doesn't work and you realize it's not working, very quickly break it down, cut it off. And I think that is what you see a lot of these successful new age startups today doing. Right? You will see a Swiggy or a Flipkart or an Amazon doing experiments very, very rapidly. And if it doesn't work, they don't shy away from doing away with it immediately. This is my own personal framework. This is a very ordinary personal framework that I use every single day while running the small businesses that I do. And it's, again, very aptly named as well. It's basically called the Ordinary Three. The Ordinary Three basically talks about nothing else except for identifying 3 metrics that you believe are important to measure and get better on to be able to see relatively longer term success. Focusing on the same 3 metrics at least for 3 months, if not 3 quarters. And iterating on these metrics, on these processes at least thrice. So I spoke about how large companies have clearly demonstrated that it takes time, 1% at a time, 1% every day to get better at it, and it's a time-consuming affair. But what I'm now trying to talk about is how can small companies, which are eventually looking to become much larger, actually replicate similar thought processes. And that's simply by looking at focusing on not more than 3 things at a time. So if I have to give you a very quick example, right, of what in this current month or possibly for the next 3 months for us, what are the 3 metrics that we've chosen? Very ordinary metrics. We basically look at same store growth. Are the same stores buying more of my products over a period of time or not? Number 2, we focus on are we getting available or are we available at more retail points every month or not? Number 3, of all the salespeople who are possibly hitting the market, right? What is the percentage conversion of their total number of sales calls versus the productive sales calls? Ordinary, right? But we believe that by focusing on these very specific ordinary things, we will at some point in time or the other achieve extraordinary outcomes that we are hoping for. I think by now I've adequately laid out the foundation why I'm saying that extraordinary is something that doesn't happen overnight. It's basically the sum total of everything that you've done over a period of time. And let me give you an example of a very well-known Udupi cafe in Bangalore, right? It's a chain. And I'm sure, a bunch of you would have possibly read about the success story of Rameshwaram Cafe as well. And that logo on the bottom right corner needs no introduction, right? We use it possibly every single day. Now, in the minds of a lot of us, possibly this unicorn, right, valued at several billions of dollars, is a lot more extraordinary than that Rameshwaram Cafe, which is a very ordinary Udupi restaurant at the end of the day. But I hope that after this session, after this quick chat that we've had, you'll possibly agree with me that at the end of the day, whether you're selling food from an ordinary restaurant or it's a platform delivering that ordinary food to the consumers, both these companies have had to do the same things, which is focus on the ordinary everyday things and get better at it. So regardless of what kind of a business you are in, right, if you want to achieve extraordinary outcomes, the only way to do that is essentially by focusing on some very regular, mundane, ordinary, usual things. I think it is time we stop trying to find the extraordinary in the ordinary, but actually go on to believe that getting better at the everyday ordinaries is the only extraordinary thing to do. And in case if you still don't believe me, I'm sure you believe this gentleman for sure, right? The most extraordinary soccer player the world possibly has ever seen. And in my mind, the day he said this quote, it just stood out beautifully. In fact, in the beginning, let me be very honest, the quote sounded ordinary as well. But it's only after you invest a certain amount of time absorbing the true import of what he really said. And he said out loud that it took me 17 years and 114 days to become an overnight success. Overnight successes, the extraordinary, doesn't happen unless you focus on getting better at the everyday ordinaries every day. Thank you.